The massive crystalline dome of the Victory Hall pulsed with anticipation as High Marshal Mocker strode to the central platform, his ceremonial armor glinting under the cold blue lights. Thousands of Cathar warriors and officials filled the terrace seating, their disciplined silence broken only by the occasional whisper of excitement. Holographic displays surrounded the platform, showing real-time footage from across their vast empire. Mocker raised his gauntlet hand, and the final murmurs ceased. His voice, enhanced but deliberately kept at a near growl, echoed throughout the chamber. Warriors of the Cathar, servants of our glorious empire, I bring you the next testament to our eternal dominance. The central hologram shifted, displaying a small blue-green planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. Behold, the third planet of the Sol system. The natives call it Earth. The crowd's reaction was muted at first, confusion rather than excitement. Kyra, the female general standing at Mocker's right, leaned forward with narrowed eyes. High Marshal, this is the target for the next crucible? It appears insignificant. Mocker's lipless mouth curved into what passed for a smile among the Cathar. Precisely, General. A primitive world with rudimentary space capabilities. No planetary seals. No unified defense network. Its inhabitants still fight among themselves over resources and ideology. He gestured, and a hologram zoomed in, showing cities, oceans, and land masses. Their technological development is centuries behind ours. They have achieved nuclear fission and basic space travel, but nothing that could threaten even our smallest vessels. Supreme Commander Vexthor rose from his seat, his ancient frame still imposing despite its age. What glory is there in crushing insects? High Marshal, the Crucible demands worthy opponents. Mocker's eyes flashed. The glory, Commander, is not in the challenge, but in the spectacle. Our dominance must be regularly displayed, not just against worthy opponents, but against those who dare to believe they might one day join us among the stars. He swept his arm toward the assembled elite. This will be no mere conquest. It will be a demonstration, swift, absolute, and broadcast across the galaxy. Understanding rippled through the crowd. The Crucible, the ritualized conquest that served as both military exercise and empire-wide entertainment, had begun to lose viewership in recent cycles. The last 3 worlds had fallen too quickly, with barely any resistance. But a planet that believed itself significant, with beings intelligent enough to comprehend their doom, yet powerless to prevent it. That promised drama. Admiral Zalter, commander of the 7th Fleet and veteran of 17 Crucible campaigns, stepped forward. My fleet stands ready, High Marshal. We will deliver this message with appropriate emphasis. Mocker nodded approvingly. You depart at the next orbital alignment. Prepare your most elite units, the Shadow Weavers, the Hounds of Forlag. Make this a crucible to be remembered for generations. As the assembly dispersed, wagers already being placed on the network about how quickly Earth would fall, Kyra remained behind, studying the holographic representation of the target planet. Something troubles you, General? Mocker asked, approaching her. Nothing concrete, High Marshal. Perhaps just a warrior's intuition. She pointed to several locations on the planet's surface. Their military installations seem dispersed, almost deliberately scattered. And these energy readings in their oceans and beneath their polar regions, they're faint but present. Mocker dismissed her concerns with a wave. Primitive nuclear deterrents, aimed at each other. Their species has never unified, Kyra. They still squabble over arbitrary land divisions. They cannot even agree on a planetary government. Of course, High Marshal, Kyra bowed slightly. The fleet will triumph regardless. But as she left the Victory Hall, Kyra couldn't shake the feeling that something about this supposedly primitive world felt calculated. The Cathar invasion fleet was a marvel of engineering and intimidation. 17 capital ships, each nearly 20 kilometers long, formed the core. Around them clustered hundreds of smaller vessels, destroyers, troop carriers, and specialized assault craft. At the center, the flagship Dominance loomed largest of all, its hull adorned with the trophies of conquered worlds. On the command deck, Admiral Zalter reviewed the final preparations with his officers. Our emergence point is beyond their gas giant, Saturn. We will establish staging positions in their asteroid belt before proceeding to orbital dominance. Initial ground forces will secure these 7 primary targets. He highlighted continents and regions on the holographic display. Shadow Weavers will infiltrate and eliminate any leadership structures. Hounds of Forlag will sweep urban centers. Their military forces will be destroyed from orbit. First Officer Krell nodded briskly. Estimated resistance timeline, orbital superiority within 2 hours. Major population centers secured within 12. Complete planetary surrender expected within 36 hours. Zalter gave what passed for a smile among his species. A swift but satisfying crucible. Broadcast preparations are complete, Admiral, the communications officer reported. The feed will begin transmitting once we exit hyperspace. Viewership projections exceed 3 trillion across the Empire. Zalter nodded in satisfaction. Then let us begin. The Empire awaits its entertainment. The massive fleet entered hyperspace, the fabric of reality tearing open before them, swallowing the Armada in a storm of dimensional energy. Throughout the Empire, beings of all species and stations turned their attention to the crucible broadcast, eager for the spectacle to begin. Days later, the fleet emerged near Saturn, its rings reflecting the distant sunlight as the massive Cthar vessels tore back into normal space. Immediately, sensor arrays deployed, scanning the system for threats or anomalies. Scans complete, Admiral, reported the sensor officer. No significant orbital defenses detected around the target planet. Primitive satellites and a small space station in low orbit. No weapons capabilities. Zalter nodded, watching as the holographic display populated with data. Proceed to Phase 2. Deploy long-range scouts to. Admiral, interrupted the sensor officer. I'm detecting unusual energy fluctuations in the Kuiper belt and similar patterns near the gas giant Jupiter. Nature of fluctuations? Zalter demanded. Unclear, sir. Low-level, possibly natural phenomena. Or, the officer hesitated, equipment error. Run diagnostics, Zalter ordered dismissively. Prepare scout vessels. As the fleet began its methodical advance toward the inner solar system, the communications officer frowned at his console. Sir, we're picking up an unusual signal. Extremely weak, encoded in a mathematical structure I've never encountered. Origin? Zalter asked. Indeterminate, sir. It appears to be coming from multiple points simultaneously. It could be background cosmic radiation. Ignore it, Zalter commanded. Nothing in this system can threaten us. Proceed as planned. The fleet continued its advance, leaving behind the outer planets and moving with calculated precision toward their target. But if anyone had been watching closely, they might have noticed tiny distortions in space, almost like ripples following in their wake. The first Cthar landing parties touched down in what appeared to be abandoned population centers, sprawling cities with infrastructure intact, but curiously devoid of inhabitants. The initial reports flooding back to the dominance were filled with confusion. Ground Team Alpha reporting. Urban center appears evacuated. No resistance encountered. No bodies or signs of conflict. It's as if they simply left. Similar reports came in from landing sites across the planet. The Amazon Basin, Antarctica, the Gobi Desert, rural areas in Eastern Europe, all showed signs of recent habitation, but no current residents. On the dominance, Zalter reviewed the incoming data with growing irritation. Where are they hiding? Our scans showed billions of life forms on this planet. Subsurface structures, perhaps, suggested First Officer Krell. Primitive bunkers? Then we'll dig them out, Zalter growled. Deploy the Hounds of Forlag. Find these cowering creatures. Across the planet, transport ships disgorged their cargo of terror. The Hounds of Forlag, massive quadrupedal predators, genetically engineered and cybernetically enhanced, bounded across empty streets and through dense jungles. Their neural implants linked them directly to their handlers, turning them into living weapons of unprecedented savagery. In the shadows between buildings and within the dense canopies of forests, the shadow weavers moved like living darkness, cloaked by technology that bent light around their bodies. These assassins were the elite of Cthar's special forces, capable of eliminating targets without ever being detected. The first reports of success came within hours. Shadow Weaver Team Delta reporting. Thermal signatures detected beneath the Antarctic ice sheet, moving to infiltrate. Then silence. Team Delta, report status, the command center demanded. No response. Team Delta acknowledged. They tried again. The communication channel remained dead. Interference from magnetic anomalies, a technician suggested. The polar regions of this planet generate unusual fields. But before Zalter could order a follow-up team, another report came in, this one from the Amazon deployment. Scout drones experiencing unexplained system failures. All units have lost control functionality, colliding with each other or terrain features. And from the Gobi Desert, Hound Unit Epsilon experiencing massive neural link overload. All biological components are in seizure. We've lost the entire unit. Zalter slammed his fist onto the command console. What is happening? These are primitive beings. More reports flooded in from across the planet. GPS navigation systems giving false positions. Energy weapons suddenly losing power. Communication networks plagued by strange, distorted audio fragments. Sir, the analysis officer approached cautiously. The pattern of failures suggests deliberate interference. Impossible snaped. Their technology is primitive. They couldn't possibly. Admiral, interrupted the communications officer. You need to see this. He transferred a video feed to the main display. It showed the helmet camera of a Cthar warrior, the image distorted by static. For a moment, the picture cleared, revealing a darkened corridor in some abandoned structure. Standing motionless at the far end was a figure in pitch-black armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Then, impossibly, the figure simply vanished. The feed cut to static. Equipment malfunction, Zalter declared, but his voice lacked conviction. Solar radiation affecting our systems. Sir, the tactical AI interjected. I've identified unusual patterns in our sensor data. There appear to be dead zones across the planet's surface, areas where our scanners return no data at all, or where all readings appear artificially uniform. Zalter stared at the tactical display, where these dead zones were highlighted in red. They formed no recognizable pattern, scattered across continents and oceans. Increase surveillance, he ordered, and deploy heavy armor units to the largest population centers. Whatever tricks these primitives are playing, they cannot hide forever. In a desolate European city, a column of Cthar heavy armor vehicles rolled through empty streets. Their magnetized treads crushed abandoned vehicles as they moved toward the city center, weapons primed. No life signs detected, reported the column commander. Proceeding to grid section 47. As the vehicles entered a large plaza surrounded by towering buildings, every system simultaneously failed. Engines died. Weapons went offline. Communication arrays fell silent. For several seconds, nothing happened. The Cthar troops inside the vehicles scrambled to restart systems or establish emergency protocols. Then, the buildings surrounding the plaza seemed to awaken. Panels slid aside, revealing automated weapon emplacements unlike anything the Cthar had encountered before. They emitted no energy signatures, no heat, no radiation, until they fired. The first salvo wasn't explosive or incendiary. Instead, waves of focused sound at precise frequencies tore through the air, resonating with the molecular structure of Cthar armor. Metal began to vibrate, then crack, then disintegrate. The troops inside screamed as the harmonic waves penetrated their bodies, liquefying organs while leaving their nervous systems intact to experience every moment of agony. The entire column was eliminated in under 4 minutes. No survivors. No distress call. Similar traps were sprung across the planet. In Southeast Asian jungles, Cthar troops were lured by false signals into areas where the vegetation released genetically engineered spores that corroded their armor and caused rapid neurological paralysis. On an abandoned oil platform in the middle of the ocean, a special forces team was ambushed by autonomous underwater drones launching mini torpedoes that could penetrate energy shields. The platform then self-destructed, dragging everything down with it. The most disturbing encounters, however, involved the entities the Cthar troops had begun calling wraiths, the figures in black, non-reflective armor. They moved with impossible speed, wielding strange energy weapons like phase daggers and electromagnetic whips. They never communicated, never hesitated, simply eliminated targets with cold efficiency before vanishing without a trace. One Cthar commander, determined to capture a wraith, set an elaborate trap using his own forces as bait. When a wraith appeared, the commander unleashed everything at his disposal. Energy weapons, ballistic projectiles, even a tactical nuclear device. The weapons either missed entirely or passed through the wraith, as if it were a hologram. Then, without touching the commander, the wraith somehow induced a catastrophic neural event that left him dead but unmarked, his face frozen in an expression of absolute terror. Word of these encounters spread through the invasion force like a virus. Discipline began to crumble. Some units refused to enter suspected trap zones. Others fired at shadows, wasting ammunition and revealing their positions. On the Crucible broadcast, the commentators tried to maintain their confident tone, but confusion was evident. Viewership across the Empire was breaking records, not because of the expected glorious victory, but because of the unprecedented disasters befalling the supposedly invincible Cthar forces. Admiral Zalter, rage and confusion warring within him, resorted to desperate measures. Deploy orbital bombardment. Target every suspicious location. I want these anomalies wiped from the face of this planet. From orbit, the capital ships opened fire, raining destruction on carefully selected targets. Mountains were vaporized. Lakes boiled away in seconds. Entire city blocks were reduced to molten slag. But for every target destroyed, 2 more dead zones appeared on their sensors. And now, the Earth began to respond in earnest. The Cthar communication system suddenly received a single, uncoded message in ancient Cthar language. Pride is the beginning of destruction. The message disappeared after a few seconds, its origin untraceable. Cthar scientists reported the discovery of undefined, extremely small nanostructures that were self-replicating in Earth's atmosphere and on the surface of their equipment. Initial analysis suggested they were some form of advanced technology, purpose unknown. Then, simultaneously across the globe, Earth's hidden defense network fully activated. A multi-layered energy shield, nearly invisible, enveloped the planet, cutting off all communication and retreat options for the Cthar forces. Hundreds of orbital weapon platforms, using advanced stealth technology, materialized around Earth, selectively targeting and destroying key command and logistics ships in the Cthar fleet with antimatter weapons and gravity beams. Superweapons deployed from secret underground and deep-sea bases. The Harmonia Wave, a sound frequency below hearing threshold, but capable of shattering the molecular structure of Cthar alloys and causing severe neural disruption to their troops. The Hungry Swarm, billions of self-directing nanomachines attacking every Cthar device and organism, breaking them down into raw materials. The Temporal Storm Eye, creating localized time bubbles, slowing down or speeding up enemies, making them easy targets or permanently trapping them. Zalter's command ship was infiltrated by an Earth AI, causing chaos, displaying images of defeat and mocking messages on every screen. Zalter tried to order a retreat or self-destruct, but the systems no longer responded. Other high-ranking commanders were isolated, watching their units be annihilated by unimaginable methods. General Kyra was confronted by a wraith who infiltrated her bridge, neutralized her entire guard force, and stood facing her in silence before the screen went black. The Crucible broadcast signal was completely hijacked by Earth. Instead of scenes of victory, it now transmitted live footage of the disintegration, panic, and horrific deaths of the Cathar army. Interspersed were brief, cold documentary clips about Earth's history, showing devastating conflicts and the development of defense technology from painful lessons in the past, possibly hinting at previous invasions or internal conflicts. An anonymous voice, calm and measured, echoed across the broadcast. You wanted a show of power. We show you the consequences of arrogance. This is not war. This is a lesson. In a final desperate act, Zalter attempted to pilot his command ship into one of Earth's orbital weapon platforms. The ship was stopped by an impenetrable force field. A massive three-dimensional image of a star map appeared before the bridge, marking the location of the Cathar Empire with a red X. The final message appeared. Lesson recorded. Zalter's ship was then disintegrated into atomic dust. After completely destroying or neutralizing the invasion force, Earth cut all signals emanating outside the solar system. The planetary shield became denser, and all scanning or communication attempts from outside failed. Any remaining Cathar ships, if any, were left adrift, their systems wiped clean of data, their crews going mad or slowly dying. No reports about Earth ever returned to the Cathar Empire. The sudden silence from the Crucible and the invasion fleet caused panic and chaos throughout the Empire. Government collapsed in many regions. Internal factions began fighting for power. The legend of Cathar's invincible might was shattered. Fear of the Silent World spread. Other empires and species in the galaxy, who had watched the Crucible with fear or curiosity, now recoiled in horror at the disappearance of the Cathar and the frightening silence from the solar system. Diplomatic or espionage efforts directed at Earth all failed. The Sol system became a forbidden zone, a mystery that no one dared to explore. Earth made no claims, declared no victory, expanded no territory. Their silence was more terrifying than any threat could be. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, in a hidden command center, officers and technicians worked in silence, monitoring complex energy charts. A commander looked at a galaxy map, where the Cathar Empire was now just an unstable territory. The commander spoke softly, just enough for a nearby microphone to pick up. They wanted a show. They got one. The next lesson will be for whoever dares to forget. In the void of space, at the edge of the solar system, automated sentinels continued their silent watch. Earth had spoken once, clearly, and would not need to speak again for a very long time. Throughout the galaxy, the name of Earth became synonymous with dread, the world that had destroyed an empire without seeming to notice or care. A primitive planet that had revealed itself to be anything but. Some claimed that the wraiths now roamed far beyond Sol, observing, learning, waiting. But Earth itself remained silent, a closed system, a lesson unheeded at one's peril. The Cathar Empire, once spanning 17 star systems and ruling over 34 species, crumbled within a decade. Without the central authority and military might that had held it together, ancient rivalries and resentments resurfaced. Former subject worlds declared independence. Warlords carved out territories. The once mighty conquest machine turned inward, consuming itself. Some Cathar, those who had studied the Crucible broadcast with more insight than most, abandoned their militaristic ways. They founded a new philosophical movement centered on humility and caution, taking Earth's message to heart. They were few, but their influence grew as the old empire collapsed around them. Meanwhile, on Earth, life continued. Cities that had appeared abandoned were repopulated. Defenses were maintained, improved, expanded. The planet's guardians knew that the galaxy would eventually forget the lesson, that some new empire would rise and look towards Sol with conquest in mind. And when that day came, Earth would be ready to teach again. But for now, the stars belonged to those wise enough to leave the silent blue world alone.